Speaking in public is one of the top fears that all human beings experience. Listen to today's episode where our guest, Elaine Williams, who's an award-winning comedian and performance coach with credits like Saturday Night Live, America's Got Talent, HBO, just to name a few. She shares with us how she deals with the fear every time she has to do a presentation, speak in public, or do a stand-up bit. Stay tuned. Welcome to the Courage to Be podcast. I'm your host, Tanya Vasallo. And each week, I will bring you amazing guests so that you can tap into the courage to break out of old patterns and live your soul's purpose. Before we get into this episode, if by the end you enjoyed it, please follow, rate, review, and share the podcast so we can reach more people. Because here's the thing, I'm on a mission to close the gender gap in the podcasting world so that more and more women's voices are heard. If you feel that this is something you value too, then please take action by rating, reviewing, following, and sharing the podcast. We can only do this together. Check out the link in the show notes to see how this is done. And make sure to stay until the end to claim some free gifts I have for you. Welcome, everyone. We have Elaine Williams with us today. She's back. We had recorded a shorter episode, a little teaser, and now I get to ask her a ton more questions. So welcome back, Elaine.
Thank you, Tanya. Thanks for having me back. Yay, excited to be here.
So let's start out with a little bit of your background and how you've arrived to this stage in your life and the type of work that you do. Share with us, with our audience, what kind of work you're doing.
Sure. Thank you. So my company is Captivate the Crowd, and I help people, especially women 40 and up, get comfortable on camera and just more visible. So I teach short form video, and I also do presentation skills. And I'm really interested in helping women tap into that vocal authority so that they show up powerfully, whether they're on camera, podcasting, speaking, short form. Because so many women I know are doing amazing work, amazing coaching, amazing healing, amazing book publishing, and yet they're still the best kept secret. Or, they're helping 40 people and they could be helping 4,000 people or 40,000 people. So I say my mission is to help heal the world, one video, one story, one joke at a time.
This is wonderful. And it's so needed nowadays because I feel like this is the path that we're communicating. I mean, if you look at the statistics, I think it's like 86% or maybe 77, it's between 70 and 80% of Americans are consuming video over reading material. And I see it already with like my daughter and their generation, like they just don't want to read as much. They want to consume. It's everything. Siri, look up, blah, blah, blah. Look at the video. And so I think this is such an important mission that you're in and that you're on and the work that you're putting out there into the world. Because like you said, I feel like there's so many women, and in particular, I know it's women and men, because speaking is a scary thing for everyone, and getting out in front of the video camera is even more. So it's just so needed. And if we can come to terms with it, tell us a little bit about your journey. How did you come to terms with this, Elaine? Like, how did you start getting comfortable with speaking? I mean, because they say, isn't speaking like one of the three biggest fears, dying, taxes, and speaking in public, right, or something?
I think, yes, it's still so true. So, I grew up performing. My parents divorced when I was very young in the 70s. And so I was always searching for family and love, and love. So I found theater and I was like, oh my God, applause, I'm in. So I loved performing from a very early age, and the stage was a very safe place for me. And so I've always been all about self-expression. And then I moved to New York to pursue theater, fell into stand-up. And then when I realized, okay, I'm going to become a life coach, I need to learn how to speak as Elaine. And I knew that I didn't know how to do that. And so I started going to Toastmasters, and I'll never forget the very first speech is called an icebreaker. And I gave my speech and I sat down and I was having, I call them like spiritual ahas. I felt like my soul was like, whoa, like I literally was like shaking, but not in like a nervous way, but like I'm home. kind of way. And I remember just thinking, oh, I'm supposed to be doing more of this. And I am so grateful. I went to that club and I went every week. It was a huge commitment. And I was like, the last minute, if somebody committed and they couldn't do it, I was like, call me, because I wanted to put that pressure on myself. So I went through and I spoke and I spoke and I did everything in the club, and it was like my gym. And I had been speaking a little bit, and then I did my first showcase, college showcase in 2008. And Tanya, I thought I was going to throw up. Like, I know how to tell a monologue. I know how to do a comedy set, but there was something that felt so vulnerable and different about talking about. I was talking about emotional eating and eating disorders. That was my very first topic on the college campus. And I remember I grabbed my agent by the hand and I said, Marianne, I need you to tell me that you love it. Even if you don't, I just need you to listen to it and tell me that you love it. Because it just felt so vulnerable. So I know what that's like. I know what that's like. I've walked that walk. And, you know, one of the double whammies we put ourselves in is people go, well, I've been speaking my whole life. Well, speaking as you in your life to the dry cleaners and the grocery store people, or, you know, that's very different than speaking with people looking at you with a, you know, and we put ourselves in this, I should be able to do this, you know, and it's like, well, unless you took debate or lots of speech class, it's a different animal. And just like with the camera, right? Well, I'm on Zoom all the time. Well, there's Zoom, and then there's presenting on Zoom, and then there's the short form, you know, there's a lot of factors. So I think when we can have a little space for ourselves and have some compassion, then we have a chance, and we can be curious instead of so judgmental about it all.
I love that you're saying that, Elaine, because I always use that with my clients and as a reminder for myself. I don't need to remind myself so much in these last couple of years because I've been exercising it, but I always say, don't look at things, don't judge yourself, just look at it with curiosity or as an experiment. So that is such a perfect sentence or quote that I want to pull out of this. So this is great, but for you, when you went to that Toastmasters first moment and you felt that this was your calling, that's awesome. What happens for someone that doesn't know if it's their calling, and how do they overcome this, you know, like this fear of speaking in public, whether it's in front of a video camera or presenting in a Zoom meeting? Because like you said, that we do have all these different formats, and it's very different to speak. I mean, I don't know. There's so much that we can tease out of this, but
yeah,
for someone
so
that's
much...
going to, that's going to Toastmasters for the first time, or that's going to speak in public for the first time, or has to present, you know, at their job or a project or something, because public speaking should be taught at schools, in my opinion.
Yep.
Like you said, no one teaches these things, and you're going to have to use the skill at some point in your life, whether it's at a job because you're presenting a project or you're presenting to a client, whether you're an entrepreneur and you have to raise money for investors, whatever it is, at some point in your life, you are going to have to figure out and learn the skill of speaking in public. But how does one overcome that fear if they don't even know if that's their calling, or it might not even be their calling?
Wow, that's so many great things to unpack. So yes, I wish that we taught it. There is a direct connection between the ability to speak well and how much money you can make. And I'm not saying that everything needs to be driven by money, but when you're able to provide for your family and give to the charities that you believe in, it helps everybody, right?
Yes.
So one of the first things I would say is, if you are the kind of person that goes into what I call compare despair, where you're scrolling on whatever platform and you're like, well, she's so great or he's so great, then I would say stop. And I still struggle with that sometimes. If I'm in a funky place, I'll just, okay, you're in timeout, Elaine, timeout. So social media, I love it. I teach it, and it's smoke and mirrors. And everybody who's like great on camera made a ton of bad videos. So what I would do, if you're a beginner and you're playing with this concept, go watch some TED Talks, because there is a whole range. Yes, some of those people are amazing presenters. Some of them are professional. Some of them have been professors and leaders of big companies, but there are also a lot of shaky people who are like, you can tell they're nervous. It's another thing. And so I would say, I watch TED Talks because I love speaking. So I watch TED Talks when I eat my lunch. That's one of the things that I do. And so that's another place where you can go and you can watch different levels. So I think that is a great thing. Another thing is you can say to your best friend, not the one who's going to tear you down, but do you have a best friend who loves you no matter what you do?
Yeah.
Like they support you, and you say, hey, Tanya, let's be video buddies this week. So that means every day I'm going to make a short video. It can be 30 seconds, 60 seconds. And you can say, okay, Tanya, so today I did my intermittent fasting, and then I had 2 cups of coffee, and then I had this and this and this. And that's what I did today. Tell me what you did. Or it can be like, okay, I'm going to tell you a story that was crazy. I went to the dry cleaner and they wanted to charge me blah, blah, blah. And I said, I'm going somewhere else. Like, whatever. Tell your friend a story, a recipe, about a funny video. Get used to seeing and hearing yourself on camera, and they are going to do the same to you. And if you do that 5 days in a row, it will not be the same. And if you do that 10 days in a row, it's just one of the best ways to get used to, this is how I sound. Okay, maybe I want to take a voice lesson so that I can not sound so nasally or whatever. Just having that practice can be life-changing.
That is wonderful. Thank you for those tricks. And as you were talking about TED Talks, I do love listening to TED Talks. And for anyone listening here, if you've watched a TED Talk and you're like, wow, but they're such great speakers, just so you know, they do go into months of coaching to prepare them to get that talk into those 18 minutes or 9 minutes, whatever it is, because they do have an allotted amount of time. So I love that you brought up TED Talks. Another place that I listen, and I put on my speaker trainer hat, to kind of listen and see how people are speaking, is stand-up comedians. Like when I first moved to the States in college, I worked at a stand-up comedy club. And I think because English was my second language, I just didn't get some of these jokes. I was a waitress there, and so I was like, well, whatever, like it was not my cup of tea. Like I'm like, why are people paying money to come and listen to these comedians here? Like, I didn't get it. And that was in the early 90s. So it was also, like, I don't think it was as big as it is now. Throughout the years, I love listening to stand-up comedians, like just see their performance. They have 1 hour. And again, for anyone that's listening that feels like, because I've heard this from clients and other colleagues that are speakers, they're like, oh, I can wing it, like, can you speak a little bit to that, Elaine? Because if you study stand-up comedians, you realize that the jokes are time, and you can talk to us about that. I mean, you're a comic, so please share with us about the difference about preparing for your speech and speaking versus I can wing it. Like I'll go to my presentation for this big client and I can wing it, like I just need a basic outline, as well as having everything way too scripted and then you sound too robotic.
Right. There's a happy medium. Yes. And, learn from my mistakes, kids. So I've been speaking a long time and performing a long time, and I was super busy and super cocky. And I had the opportunity, I was working on a pilot for a TV show. And part of my payment was I was going to get to use the audience and the camera to do some speaking for a restaurant. And I winged it, and it was horrible. From just the whole thing. And I was super busy and I just threw it together and I thought I can wing it. And it was a huge wasted opportunity. But I'm grateful because it was such a painful lesson. It's seared into my soul. So, and a lot of times people procrastinate because they're uncomfortable and because we don't like to practice. So many people in America, anyway, we start off playing the piano or taking some kind of, instrument. And then after a certain period, our parents are tired of begging us to practice. We don't want to practice. And then we're done with it, right? Because practicing can feel boring or it can be uncomfortable or whatever. But a tiny bit of preparation is worth a pound of cure. And so I teach people to chunk it down, to get up and walk and talk. There's so many ways. I've been using Zoom and Otter.ai. So I was working on my messaging I'm tweaking my website, and I was speaking into Zoom, and now I have Otter. So now I have a script that I'm editing and playing with. There's a million ways, and some people have hired me to make them practice. I've actually been hired by people because they know left to their own devices, they're not going to do it.
They won't do it.
And there's nothing like winging it or staying up the whole night the night before, trying to write it and memorize it. Like, that is hell. And it's so not fun. It is like survival, and you're sleep deprived, and it's exhausting. And then there is another way when you're like excited and you prepared a little bit. It's like so much fun. It's like, I can't wait to go do this. I'm still a little nervous. There's an inner critic that always says, you should have prepared more. Like, I trained for the marathon for 2 years and I had that voice. So that voice is a part of me, and I have to just make friends with that voice. But at least doing some kind of preparation, some kind of rehearsal, it's worth it. It's worth it every time. So I really highly recommend that you do not wing it. On the other hand, when you're too scripted, people can smell it. It's a turnoff. It feels forced. I'm working with one of my clients. She used to script her Facebook Lives, and now we're getting she's doing outlines and bullet points. I'm a big fan of outline and bullet points. And here's the deal. This is a trick. So when you listen to comedy, comedians will say things, the other day. And it's like, yeah, for me, one joke the other day was 10 years ago. As a comedian, your job is to make it seem like you're just talking off the cuff of your head. Chris Rock is really good at that. Let me tell you, I know people who write for him. He might do some improv stuff, but a lot of it is highly, highly scripted. And the job of the comedian is to make it seem like you're just flowing in and out of stuff. And as a comedian, you might be flowing in and out of crowd work, but the jokes have been worked on. Trust me.
And rehearsed, I'm guessing too.
Yeah. And the delivery. Yeah. Because every once in a while, when you're a pro, when you're in the zone, you can, what I do called writing on stage, but that's within the structure of a set that has been crafted. I'm going to do my opening stuff because it's not too edgy before they know me, and it's inclusive, and it's going to draw the audience. Then I'm going to get to my middle stuff that's edgier or newer or riskier. And then I'm going to close strong. There's certain nuances, right? And so as a speaker, every time you have the opportunity to be on stage, it's a gift. Storytelling is the oldest human art form, right? Since the beginning of time, they were sitting around, telling stories around the campfire. And so I always teach my people, like, respect it. They're giving you a stage, whether it's a podcast or an open mic or a Toastmasters thing, or come speak to my mom's group about blah, blah, blah. It's an honor and a privilege. So the best thing you can do is be prepared. Don't over prepare, but, have an intention, have an idea of what you want to talk about. Think about your points, think about your stories. Tell a story, teach a point, or teach a point, tell a story. We need stories to help integrate what we're learning.
This is wonderful. Oh my God, this is just like a full-on class here, Elaine. I love it. Especially for me as a speaker, I do speak, on podcasts now, the YouTube, all of last year was for me about getting visible. But as you were saying this, and you mentioned your inner critic, and that shows up for all of us. How do you deal with your inner critics?
Oh, woo, the $1 million question. So, and I have spent $1 million trying to get rid of my inner critic. I have done every self-help transformational thing. And what I have learned for me at the age of 54 is it's always going to be there. And if I can learn to listen to it, what are you trying to protect me? Okay, thank you. Okay, I got it. And again, it's for me, it's like the self-care, it's the grounding, it's warming up. Am I prepared? Did I drink water? Did I sleep? Am I, before I speak, I do not answer my phone. I don't watch the news. I want to stay in a high state. I want to keep my high vibe because I want to give from a full cup, right? And I've been on tours. By the end of the tour, that's hard. When you've traveled all over America zigzagging and you haven't slept well because of hotels and adrenaline, that's a whole nother thing. And that's when adrenaline, you're grateful because it's going to kick in. But learning, oh, I'm just nervous. Oh, I'm just scared. I've learned like that's what self-mastery is, right? And so I avoid too much caffeine. There's just certain things I try to protect my head and my heart. And then I try to listen to what is my inner critic. Is that just my ego? Is that my identity? And then I also, Tanya, I think this is so important. Why? Why are you speaking? It's not just to go make money. It's not just to go get a check. It's not just to fulfill your ego, but like my commitment is to use my story for good, to help heal the world with laughter and love, to help, make the world a better place. I didn't have kids. I chose not to have kids. So I give back in lots and lots of other ways. And when I can come from that place and share my heart, and I'm always like, I'm a master in progress. So I will tell you every mistake I made if you want to know, like, so you can learn from them, so you can make your own mistakes, right? But when I come from that place of wanting to contribute and wanting to help relieve suffering, then I'm not so worried about, oh, my hair is what's happening. My hair is frizzy, or my background's a little, this chair, whatever. Like there's always a good reason to not press go. There's always a good reason to not put yourself out there, right? But when you're connected with your mission, your heart, the commitment you have to make a difference in the world, then that is so much bigger than all the other considerations. Because that inner critic, it's there. Sometimes it's really loud. Sometimes I can dial it back, but so far it's with me. And so I have learned, and I'm still learning how to like navigate and negotiate with it. And when I'm connected with like, I want my life to have meant something, like I'm so lucky to be alive. I should have been dead about 1 million times. I had 3 addictions. I'm an assault survivor, domestic violence, like you name it. It happened to me in my teens and 20s. And I am so lucky to be healthy and alive and not crazy. Like I manage my crazy, but mostly not crazy. I'm not in an institution, right? And so I'm so lucky. So who am I not to share my value and my gifts?
That's huge. And not only that, when you do share those values and those gifts, how many lives are you touching with that? I mean, I want to go back in this because you said so many beautiful things. The first one is, let me see which direction I want to take it. With those addictions and all these things that you've gone through, that takes a certain level of vulnerability to speak that out loud, because that can be an easier way of just, let me keep it to myself. That's my protected secret that goes to the grave with me. Like people don't need to know my addictions or that I was sexually assaulted or abused or whatever the story is. Again, it goes back to stories. I also wanted to touch on that. Share with us, what does it do to be able to share your vulnerability in these stories? Because you just gave us little bits of it. You just dropped little hints of some vulnerable points for you. And what can that do when we can become vulnerable and share those places that we actually don't want to go to?
Well, I encourage everybody to be vulnerable because I think that that's where the juice is. And I've had the benefit of being in the 12-step recovery world for 22 and a half years. And so you sort of get trained to like go in and kind of go blah if you need to. And so there is a time and a place. And I think sometimes the audience isn't ready for you to be super vulnerable. I think it depends, know your audience, right? And so I spoke in Montana. I got hired to speak at a private Catholic university, and there was a very bad thing happening in their culture. And I have never spoken into so much hate. I spoke for the teachers, and there were a lot of dynamics happening that I was not aware of. I came like, I'm going to share my story and share my heart. And it was a really interesting experience. And I learned it was a lot, you know. And so I think, yes, it's going to be vulnerable, and you want to be clear who you're speaking to and how, right? And so, and then the other thing is I speak for AA often. And I say, when I get asked, I say, look, I'm going to say a couple of things that will make people uncomfortable. And I have been judged and questioned by it. And I know that it also saves lives and makes a difference. So my choice is I'm going to tell parts of my story that are directly related to my codependency, my addiction, and it may make some people upset. And I'm choosing to say that anyway, because I know that people have said, you've saved my life. I'm going to go get into therapy because of this. I didn't even realize, but I've done that too, or I had this happen to me or whatever. And so, you know, I love vulnerability. I think it's important to be vulnerable, and it takes something. And sometimes there is criticism, especially for women. There is still criticism. I mean, we have made some major strides, and the biggest critics I had when I was speaking on the colleges were female bookers.
Wow.
Yeah, I had one woman who went on and on and on about how much she loved the male comedian who came, and she loved the other male speaker. Like, she hated female speakers. At least maybe it was just me, but I got the sense that she only liked dealing with men, and she went on and on and on. And I remember I was like, wow, like my gut was like, you know, and that's okay. I showed up and I did my job, and I'm still friends. It was the first time I spoke about my sexual assault. It was in New Mexico. And I'm still friends with a kid who came up to me afterwards, and he said, oh my God, I have not been going to class because I was assaulted and I'm terrified to tell anybody. And he finished the semester. He graduated on time. I helped him get into therapy. And now he's a dance instructor, and he's living his best life. And so that was worth it. His life was worth all the other
Wow.
shenanigans that happened. So it's great to be vulnerable. And sometimes it's like, move forward with caution.
Yeah. And like you said, what stood out for me is know your audience and how are you going to present it? You know, like, is it the appropriate? Is this the right place to share this vulnerability? And how can that move other people? Which takes me to another question. As you've been speaking of all of this, talk to us a little bit more about story and the importance of story, and how, I mean, everything gets passed down through
If you
story.
think
Story
about
is
it,
an
right?
important thing. Yeah.
We were telling stories before there was written language, right? And if you think about it, like, it's 2023, right? So we have more information coming at us ever in the history of mankind, right? Which is like so exciting and so overwhelming. So our brain's job is to keep us alive, right? So we're constantly going, is this it? Do I need this? Is this important? Is this important? Is this important? So there's a lot of things coming at us that we don't even register, right? So a lot of times our brain is like, nope, nope, nope. And so, and just think about, you're driving, you've got podcasts, the radio, different things happening. You see red lights in front of you, you know to brake. That, all of a sudden, that red light in front of you takes over everything else. We hope, right? That's what we're trying to teach our teenagers, right? So red light, okay. Then once we can go green again, okay, then we can kind of, right? And so think about, the average person is getting so much information coming at them, coming at them, coming at them. And so when you can put information plus emotion, that goes into long-term memory. Information plus emotion equals long-term memory. And so that is the goal. If you're a content creator, or you're going to start or whatever, you want to stop the scroll, right? Like, have you ever like had a busy day, your friend sent you this thing, and like, and you click on it, and all of a sudden you're like, Like the story compelled you, somebody was crying, or something was really heartfelt, or something was really funny, or it's like a quote that just, seared your soul. That's what we want. And that's what we do with emotion. That's what we do with a story. And here's what's so exciting, Tanya, is stories don't have to be, yes, go to the Moth. The Moth is great too. Go to Toastmasters. But stories can be like one sentence before, one sentence of the transformation, and one sentence after. But if it's told in a compelling way, it can be riveting. That's what joke telling is. So, we're giving everybody homework. So start watching the Moth stories, go watch TED Talks, and start watching comedy, because good comedians are amazing storytellers. Some of them do it in one-liners. Some of them do it in set up and punch, set up and punch, set up and punch. Some of them do them in stories, and then they insert things. There's lots of different formats, right? But one way is to really start thinking about, what are my stories, and start writing them down. And it doesn't have to be Shakespeare. It can be bullet points. It can be like a list. Oh yeah, everyone always says this is a funny story that I tell. And then what's underneath that story? And what's another story? It's got to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. It doesn't have to be in that order. And there needs to be some kind of transformation or shift or change that happens. And the better you are with your stories, the more influence you will have, and the more you will be able to have compelling calls to action and help stop the scroll.
This is wonderful. I love hearing all these tidbits. I'm taking notes here as we're speaking too. There used to be a place in Madrid. I don't know if it exists anymore, but when I was in my late teens, early 20s, we'd go. It was called the Cuenta Cuentos. It's the story, like fables. So it was a place where you could have a drink, and there'd be maybe kind of like stand-up comedy. Instead of having three comedians, they'd have three storytellers come up that night and tell a story. Some of them could be folk tales, like that we already knew the stories, but they'd tell it in their own way. And other times could be their own personal stories or made up stories. And I've always wanted to set up something like that here in Santa Fe, like a gathering, like once a month or once a quarter with storytellers, and just, have your drink, your glass of wine while you're listening to amazing storytelling. I mean, because it's just, storytelling is fabulous. And if you can learn to master it, like you're saying, through Moth shows or TED Talks or comedians, it's a great way of studying this and seeing, how can I bring this into my own life and into my own way of communicating and relating to other people.
Can I say something else to that, if I may?
Please.
So I just want to emphasize, it's a skill. It is a skill that can be developed. Nobody rolls out of bed and they're like, they're an amazing storyteller, right? A lot of times, yes, there's talent. Everybody has some talent, but a lot of it is developing the skill. So start listening to stories. And the thing about stories is, you don't want it to be, I just gave a super extreme example of like a joke format. So you want to paint the picture, and if you use the senses, right? The sun was on her face. The wind was on her back. New York City in the summer, nothing like that. Oh yeah. And then there was a smell of pee everywhere. That's a misdirection. But you want to bring in the senses, and you want to paint the picture. And sometimes what happens, either we're too succinct, or sometimes we're too long-winded. There's always that person at the party that goes on, and you're like, where are we going? And then they finally get to the punch and you're exhausted, right? So you want to use your words and paint the pictures, but that's why I do like writing things out, because then you can go back and say, okay, the sun on my face. Okay, good. I don't need to say the streaming warm sun on my face, right? So I'm a big fan of like, write it out, just get it out, and then go do something else, and then come back and say, okay, is this word really necessary? And so that just takes practice. It just takes practice, but it's a skill that everybody can hone.
That is great to hear. I was laughing when you were saying the person that goes on and on. I think I'm that person to my dad's eyes, because he'd always be like, Tanya, just synthesize. Like I think it's a man versus women type thing, because when I share with like my mom, like she's all into it and listening, but my dad would always like, synthesize. Can you just like abbreviate the story? Like what's the point? What are you getting to? So kind of makes me laugh, but at the same time, like you're saying, it's a skill we can all learn, and we can learn to, see where we drag on, where can we bring the senses, where can we stop people with the different things. As we're talking about this, I want to go back and what you mentioned before I even go there. As you're saying stories and things that happen to us, do you keep a notebook or like a Google Docs or something where you write down things that happen to you?
I have so many notebooks, and because I'm living in two places, I have been really at work at putting things in my Google Docs. And so kind of, and here's the thing is, hopefully as you're listening to this, maybe you're at the gym, maybe you're cooking, who knows, right? We all do lots of things while we listen to podcasts. Hopefully you're getting some ideas, or you're remembering, oh, I forgot Aunt Maud used to tell this story and da, 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 da. Write it down, and your inner critic is going to go, write it down anyway. I cannot tell you how many times I had an idea for a joke and I would start to write it down or doubt myself, and then I would see that joke on TV. Now, obviously, the person on TV already got the joke, but like it just was a great reminder of your stories are valid. And even if you feel like, oh, everybody's heard this, we need to hear things as human beings. We need to hear things a million times. We have built-in forgetters, right?
And Tony from different perspectives too.
Yeah. And sometimes you can hear something a million times and then somebody else says it and you're like, oh my God. You're right. So don't, your inner critic's going to have opinions, and just write it down anyway.
That's awesome. And that notebook that you have, could you read us like 2 or 3 things that you have jotted down?
So I'm working on a one-woman show, and I want it to be all about contradictions and energy and the double standards. And I want to be making fun. I love to make fun of myself. So like there are all these women who are like, I turned 50 and now I'm free. And I'm like, I still care about what people think. I'm still just as neurotic as ever. Okay, maybe not quite. I'm still worried about my weight. Like maybe I'm a little freer, but like I didn't get the magic 50 freedom thing yet. I'm waiting, or like dating. Oh my God, dating. Like listen to, if you're in a marriage and you're feeling like bored or like, I don't know, listen to these stories and you will be like so grateful that you're married. Like this dating is so crazy. I'm on OkCupid. Oh my God. These guys are like, one guy was like writing to me, like we're writing these long things. And finally I thought, this is like work. I said, would you be open to the possibility of a call? That's all I said. Gone, unmatched. So all my guy friends were like, he was married. So, and I just don't get it. Like, why would you want to spend that much time and energy writing to somebody that you have no intention? Like it's beyond, but whatever. So anyway, so those are some of my ideas. I also want to talk about, as a white, middle-aged, sort of middle-class woman, race, because, the patriarchy has not been good for anybody. Let's face it. It's not good for anybody, even the old white guys. They're, they die early. They've got all these issues. There's all kinds of ancestral trauma. We all have it, right? And so like, but as a white middle-aged lady, I feel like, I'm not qualified, but I feel like, well, somebody's got to talk about it. So let's talk about it. And like, what difference are you making? And okay, we all got upset and woke up about George Floyd. Now what? What are you doing? What changes have you made? And what other changes can you make? And, there's all these people who thought they were woke. And I realized I'm not woke just because I go to AA and there's all kinds of people in AA. That doesn't mean I'm woke. So, and I thought, like, I feel like, oh my God, I'm going to offend people, but it's my truth and I want to make a difference. And, so these are just some of the ideas that are bouncing around in my brain. and about, and I love comedy, Tanya, but it's crazy. I went to a show the other night and really good seasoned professionals, 20-year pros were having an off night because of one drunk lady. And I kept thinking, wow, like this is such an art form and it's so precarious because one drunk lady was so loud and obnoxious and she was just enough to be bothersome but not get kicked out, which is almost worse.
Yeah.
And she screwed up the whole night for the rest of us. I was trying so hard to be the laugh leader and to laugh really, really loud, but she was so distracting and so divisive, and I just thought, it's an interesting art form that you can put 20 years of heart and soul and training and love and experience. And now granted, I'm sure the rest of the shows the weekend were great, but it made me kind of mad. So anyway, so that's what my rantings are.
No,
today.
but you have some great things within that, because as you were saying, as a middle-aged woman, my 50s or whatever, white woman, middle class, sometimes I feel unqualified. And I wanted to ask you about that because I think many of us suffer from this too, can you talk to us a little bit more of how do you deal with those moments if I'm not qualified enough? And I know women, we do, or you could call it the imposter syndrome. I know men have it too, but I also know that women have it much more exaggerated.
Yes,
There's been studies that if a woman's applying for a job and she's 95% qualified, she won't apply.
Won't do it.
And if a man's 50% qualified, he will apply because he thinks he has it all together. So talk to us a little bit from your perspective. How do you deal with that part of not feeling qualified or the imposter syndrome, or you're doing a show and it gets thrown off after 20 years because of one person and you start doubting yourself? How do you deal with those doubts and that imposter syndrome?
Well, that's such a great question. And I think it comes back to context, so I spoke for years and years and I got to be in 43 states. I want to go to all 50. And I would say, I'm going to talk about some heavy topics and I'm going to crack some jokes because humor helped me heal and humor helps people remember things. And I'm going to be sharing some things that might save your life or your roommate's life or your friend's life. My intention is not to offend, but to make a difference so that you leave change, so that you leave and you heard something that could save a life. And so when I set that context, it really helped people. It helped them give me space and it helped me give them space. Now, every once in a while, I would still have somebody who would get offended and they would run out. But I used to think, you know what? Maybe they're going to go to therapy now. Like maybe they needed to get activated so they realize, oh my gosh, this woman really upset me. And it used to really upset me that people were upset. And then I said, you know what? My commitment is so much bigger because I'm from the South. I want to be liked. Do you like me? Oh God, am I doing okay? Do you think I'm funny? Do you think I'm funny? Like that need to be liked is something I am still bumping up against clearly from my ranting, right? But when I can think about who do I need to be, and my commitment is to make a difference, that's bigger to me than if everybody likes me. Because like you got 100 people in a room, 50% are going to dig you, 25% are going to be like, whatever. And 25% are going to be like, I can't stand her, whatever. And so at the end of the day, do you want to kill yourself, bending yourself into a pretzel to try to make everybody happy? Or do you want to use your voice, your art, your body, your temple, your work to try to make a difference for the 50 people who were leaning in and maybe the 25 others who might come along, right? Like at the end of the day, do you want to make a difference or do you want to be liked? Because, and I believe this is ancestral, Tanya, because I think we were in the cave. We had to make the caveman happy so we could stay in the cave and not get kicked out and be eaten by the tigers or the dinosaurs. And I believe that for a lot of women with our conditioning, we are still fighting that. And I think that is directly related to the fear of being visible. If I'm really bold and I stand up and I speak powerfully about what I believe in, somebody's not going to like me. I'm going to get bullied or whatever on Facebook or whatever the latest platform is. And then I'm going to die. It's not logical, but I think it's in our
But we still haven't.
genes.
Yeah, it is. It absolutely is. And it's such a great reminder of that book series, The Clan of the Cavemen, I think it was called. And actually our daughter's name came from, Ben picked up that book, my husband, because her name was Ayla. I don't know if they pronounce it the same. I think it was Ayla in English, but the author is French. So I don't know how they pronounce it in French. But she gets kicked out of the cave. And so, I mean, if you go through history, it is ancestral and it is in our DNA, from the cave times, of getting kicked out of your tribe because you're not, in alignment, you don't fit in, or from the Middle Ages when the women would all get burnt at the stakes, because we were saying the wrong thing. And then patriarchy continues, to put us down. It's like, you're not allowed to have a voice. That's why I think everything that you're saying is so great and such a wonderful reminder that we are going to deal with imposter syndrome, that we are going to deal with those moments that have been programmed into us, because it's not who we are. It really has been programmed into us by our culture, by our parents, by our teachers, by our places of worship, by the media. It has been put into us that we are not worthy, that we should stay small, that we should not use our voice. That's why the work you're doing is so important, especially for women. And everyone's going to benefit on the long run. Like you said, patriarchy has kind of ruined everyone, including the white middle-aged men. It's like, if
It
you
hasn't been
give
good for
everyone to
anybody.
it's like, give a chance to everyone else that doesn't look like you and doesn't, have the same beliefs, and let's see what kind of world we could create. So this has been incredible, Elaine. I could go on and on for hours, just distilling, but as we're wrapping up, I still want to come back to one more thing that you mentioned earlier on, which was, and you kind of brushed over it, and following your mission and getting over your fear, speaking in public, because you're more committed to that big why. And one of the things that you chose was not to have children. And I just want to touch on that a little bit, because I feel like, again, through patriarchy, the ways we're supposed to be, we should all get married, we should all have kids, we should all have a job, and then we should all retire, and be grandparents by that point. I think that's super bold. And I chose to have a child, but I know there's a lot of people out there, women in particular, that might be choosing not to have kids because they are committed to something bigger. And if you take women, like Oprah, Louise Hay, many of the women that I've looked up to have chosen not to have. And even though they might have had kids and they gave them up for adoption or something else, can you share a little bit with us how and why, just because we never know who might be listening, that's an important thing?
Woo! I might cry a little bit. So I was a little girl and I said to my mom, I never want to have kids. And she was like, okay. I mean, that's kind of weird. I was always like coaching people. What's your dream? Why aren't you doing it? Since I was a little girl, I was that precocious girl. And then I was my freshman year in college. Now I had been assaulted as a preteen and a teen, and I was at Padre spring break and I was gang raped. And then I came home and our family's dog died. And then my parents cut me off from college. So it was like, bam, bam, bam. And then I got a job with my best friend. We got a job at Chili's and I met my first love, Mikey Mack. And he was my first love, and he was like the good guy and I loved him. And then unfortunately I got onto drugs to lose weight and, like all this bad stuff happened and we broke up. And we have recently reconnected 30 years later. Now he's married with 3 kids, whatever. And he's like, how you have a friend who's like 5 years and then you don't talk and then you pick back up. So we had coffee in December because I'm in Dallas now and for the moment. And I was so jacked up after I had coffee with him, Tanya. I was like, just off. And then after a few days, I was like sobbing, like ugly crying, sobbing. And I realized I never processed any of that stuff that had happened to me prior to meeting him and then meeting him. And when we were talking, we've reconnected and stuff. I said, if I was ever going to have kids, it would have been with you. And so for me, that's been a bit, and he's had 3 kids and they're all doing great and he's happily married, and, but I think part of it was I knew my path. I was supposed to be like a thought leader, even though I resisted it. People have told me I'm a healer for years. And I was like, I don't even know what to do with that. And then when I got sober, I just knew like, okay, I'm supposed to be on this, sharing my story and helping more people. And then when I fell into comedy, so I've just known it's this path. And I also come from, kind of messed up genetics. Like I love my family, but there's a lot of alcoholism and depression and anxiety in our genes. And so I always thought to myself, maybe someday I will adopt or foster, but I have not been able to manifest the partner or whatever. And turning 54, I'm heading into 55 soon. I think this is the time of your life when you kind of go, did I forget to have kids? Or, but I know in my heart that this was the right choice for me. And I know that I'm very maternal, and my friends tease me that I am like a Jewish mother, and I am so maternal with the people in my life, my clients, my network. And I still have that inner critic that's like, what did you do with your life? But I know I've saved lives. I've saved lives. One girl said, I used to cut myself. I'm really stressed out. And seeing you was more effective than 4 years of therapy. And one girl was like, I'm breaking. She was emailing me and I was like, I don't know what this means. Call me right now. And I've called my contacts on college campuses and said, I don't know what's happening, but you need to go have somebody look at her, and not a cop, but like an RA. And so I know, and I've had the privilege of sponsoring women in AA. And, so I know that I give back in lots and lots of ways. And when I am in that inner judgment, I think I'm starting to learn that that's the patriarchy judge.
Yes.
And that my life does have validness, and I am an aunt for a lot of people. I'm like a godmother aunt, and so it's so easy to discount because I don't have the fancy house and the husband or
And the
whatever,
the dream,
the mini,
quotes.
the dream. And that's something I've been bumping up against this December, Tanya. It's very different to live another place and swoop in for a week versus being here for months. It is all my childhood stuff. It's been like right here, and I'm grateful. And I'll share one other thing, if I may. I have been afraid of grieving, right? My stepmother passed. That's a whole can of worms right there. But like both of my parents are still alive, and there has been a part of me that's been like, oh God, what's going to happen? And what I've realized is like, because December has been so intense and I have been grieving, I'm not afraid anymore. Like, I know that I can handle it, and I know that I will handle the grief, and that it's going to be hard, but I trust myself and the process more. So I don't know if that makes sense.
I so appreciate you with your vulnerability and sharing that, because I do believe that it's part of patriarchy. Women are meant to be moms. And like I said, we have to follow the pattern, the script that was set up for us. And I think by you sharing that story, it gives permission to many women that are out there that might find themselves in this place of like, no, but I really want to have kids because I am maternal. You can still be maternal in another way without having to have kids. And it gives permission to women that might have not been able to have kids for whatever reason, because biologically they couldn't, or maybe with their spouse, or to choose other alternatives, like, do I want to adopt? Do I want to, like, it helps us shift paradigms of what our life is supposed to look like. And like you're saying, I think it's also great that you're seeing how you've been an incredible mother and had an incredible impact on so many other people that maybe if you would have had kids, you wouldn't have been able to do all of that. So I commend you and I appreciate you for sharing that vulnerability, Elaine. Thank you so much. And as we're wrapping up, Elaine, where can people find you?
Well, thank you for the question. So I think the easiest way is Captivate the Crowd with C, captivatethecrowd.com. And I have a confidence on camera checklist, and I have a free Facebook group, Captivate the Crowd. And there's YouTube if you want to go learn, some vocal exercises that you can do. There's some breathing things where you'll, silly things, but it will help you get on your breath and help you for speaking stuff.
Okay, thank you. We'll put that in the show notes too. And what's one thing you can leave the listeners with to live a life with more courage?
I would say that the thing you're the most afraid of, that has been the most painful, when you can do some healing work and realize that that was the lessons and the gold, then you're winning. And who better, like you've been through it, and then you can help other people. So, like coming through the addictions and coming through the trauma and the abuse, I never thought I would be sharing it. And, but it has been my greatest pain, but my greatest joy. And so whatever you've been through, there's hope and there's help and there's actually joy on the other side. So that's what I want to leave people with today.
Elaine Williams, thank you so much for being with us today. I so appreciate you. Mwah. I am so grateful that you joined me today. If you enjoyed it, there's one thing I'd like you to do. Click on the follow button so you don't miss a single episode. Leave me a rating and a review, and please share. As my way to thank you, email us a screen grab of your review at the email in the show notes, and we will send you a free Crafting Your Future guided visualization, which is so simple to do with outstanding results. It will empower you and give you the confidence to attract and create the life you've always desired. See you in our next episode.